Cole Jennings was left for dead 6 feet under with a broken knife and a lie carved into his name. But when he clawed out of the grave, he didn't just want the gold. He wanted them to feel every ounce of dirt he swallowed. The year is 1868. Dust devils danced across the parched earth of the Arizona Territory, mirroring the unease settling in Cole Jennings' gut. He was a scout, hardened by the war and weathered by the West, and right now, he was responsible for the safety of a wagon train carrying gold, a king's ransom in freshly mined or destined for the federal mint in Denver. Cole wasn't a man who spooked easily. He'd seen things during the war that would curdle milk, faced down Apache raiding parties, and even stared into the cold eyes of a mountain lion without flinching. But something about this crew, cobbled together from the dregs of various mining camps, set his teeth on edge. There was Slim Johnson, the wagon master, a greasy character with a shifty gaze and a penchant for tall tales. Then there were the brothers, Jade and Caleb, muscle for hire, their faces perpetually etched with suspicion. And finally Marcus, the quiet one, a former preacher turned card sharp, always lurking in the shadows. Cole had voiced his concerns to the transport's overseer, a gruff but fair man named Mr. Abernathy, but the man had simply clapped him on the shoulder and said, "They're all we could get on short notice, Cole. Just keep a sharp eye and we'll be fine." He kept a sharp eye all right. He watched how Slim's eyes lingered on the gold, the way Jade and Caleb whispered to each other in low voices, and how Marcus always seemed to be listening, even when he wasn't looking. He noticed the subtle shifts in their behavior, the barely perceptible glances exchanged when Cole wasn't supposed to be looking. They were 3 days out from Prescott, traversing a desolate stretch of desert known as the Devil's Anvil, when it happened. A sudden ambush, swift and brutal. Bandits they were meant to seem, but Cole saw through the charade instantly. The bandits moved with a familiarity that spoke of prior planning, and their leader, it was Slim, a bandana covering the lower half of his face, but the greedy glint in his eyes was unmistakable. A gunshot rang out and Abernathy fell, clutching his chest. Chaos erupted. Cole fought back, his Colt Peacemaker spitting lead, taking down 2 of the attackers, but he was outnumbered, overwhelmed. He felt a sharp blow to the head and the world dissolved into darkness. Cole awoke to darkness, a crushing weight pressing down on him. Panic seized him, a cold, suffocating wave. He tried to move, but his limbs were constricted. He could smell the raw, pungent scent of freshly cut wood. He was in a box, a coffin. His mind raced, piecing together the fragments of the ambush. Slim's betrayal, Abernathy's fall, the blow to the head. They hadn't just left him for dead, they'd buried him alive. Rage, hot and primal, surged through him, momentarily eclipsing the fear. He slammed his fists against the lid of the coffin, a futile gesture that only brought pain. The wood was thick, solid. He was trapped. Think, Cole, think. He remembered the boot knife he always carried, strapped to his ankle. With agonizing slowness, he managed to reach down, his fingers fumbling for the familiar leather sheath. His hand closed around the handle, and he drew the knife. It was a small blade, more suited for skinning rabbits than escaping a grave, but it was all he had. He tested the point against the wood above him. Solid. He began to hack slowly, methodically, each strike fueled by desperation and a burning desire for revenge. Splinters flew, lodging under his fingernails. His muscles screamed in protest. The air grew thick and stale, each breath a struggle. Time lost all meaning. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The darkness pressed in on him, whispering doubts, urging him to give up, but Cole refused. He pictured Slim's sneering face, the cold calculation in his eyes. He imagined Abernathy lying dead in the desert, betrayed by the very men he trusted. This wasn't just about survival, it was about justice. It was about making them pay for what they had done. He hacked and clawed, his body a machine fueled by rage and the faint glimmer of hope. Finally, after what seemed like an age, the wood began to give way. A sliver of light pierced the darkness, and Cole redoubled his efforts, tearing at the weakened wood with his bare hands until, with a final, desperate heave, he broke through. He gasped, sucking in the cool night air, his lungs burning. He pushed against the remaining wood, forcing the lid open enough to squeeze through. He tumbled out of the coffin, landing hard on the unforgiving earth. He lay there for a moment, panting, his body trembling, the taste of dirt and wood filling his mouth. He was alive, barely, but alive, and he would have his revenge. The desert wind whipped around him, a mournful cry that echoed his own pain. Cole stumbled to his feet, his body screaming in protest. Every muscle ached, every breath was a reminder of his near demise. He was covered in dirt and blood, splinters embedded in his skin, his clothes torn and ragged. He looked like a ghost risen from the grave. He needed water, food, and weapons, but most of all he needed answers. Why had they betrayed him? Was it just the gold, or was there something more? He scanned the horizon, the vast, unforgiving landscape offering no solace. He knew this territory like the back of his hand. He knew where to find a spring, a hidden cache of supplies, but he also knew that his former comrades would be looking for him. They wouldn't leave loose ends. He started walking, putting one foot in front of the other, driven by a single, all-consuming purpose. He would find them. He would make them pay. As he walked, his mind replayed the events leading up to the ambush. He remembered Slim's nervous glances, Jade and Caleb's hushed whispers, Marcus's unsettling silence. He searched for clues, for any indication of their plan. He recalled a conversation he'd overheard between Slim and Marcus a few days before the attack. They had been talking in low voices, their words indistinct, but he had caught a few phrases. The agreement, the buyer, more than just gold. More than just gold, what could that mean? Was the gold just a means to an end? Was there something else at stake? The questions swirled in his mind, fueling his anger, hardening his resolve. He would find out the truth, no matter the cost. He reached the spring just before dawn, the cool water a welcome relief to his parched throat. He drank deeply, washing away the taste of dirt and despair. He found a small cache of supplies he had hidden weeks ago, dried meat, a canteen, a spare Colt peacemaker. He cleaned his wounds, reloaded his weapons, and prepared for the hunt. He was no longer Cole Jennings, the respected scout. He was something else now, something darker, something driven by vengeance. He was a ghost, a shadow, a hunter, and he was coming for them. He checked the cylinder on his Colt, the metallic click echoing in the stillness of the desert morning. The hunt had begun. The first stop was Redemption Gulch, a lawless mining town teeming with prospectors, gamblers, and outlaws. Cole knew Slim frequented the town's saloon, the Golden Nugget, a den of iniquity where fortunes were won and lost on the turn of a card. He entered the saloon, his face hidden beneath the brim of his hat, his eyes scanning the room. The air was thick with smoke and the stench of cheap whiskey. A piano player hammered out a discordant tune in the corner, while rough-looking men crowded around tables, their faces illuminated by the flickering lamplight. He spotted him almost immediately. Slim was sitting at a table in the back, surrounded by a group of his cronies, a stack of chips in front of him. He was laughing, his voice raspy and arrogant, seemingly without a care in the world. Cole approached the table, his hand resting on the butt of his Colt. The laughter died down as he drew closer. Slim looked up, his eyes widening in disbelief. Well, Cole said, his voice low and menacing. Look what the cat dragged in. Slim's face paled. He tried to stand, but Cole was too quick. He grabbed Slim by the collar, pulling him close. "Where's the gold, Slim?" Cole demanded, his voice a snarl. "And what was that you were talking about more than just gold?" Slim stammered, his eyes darting around the room, searching for help. I don't know what you're talking about, Cole." Cole tightened his grip, his knuckles turning white. "Don't lie to me, Slim. I crawled out of my own grave to ask you these questions. You owe me the truth." He shoved Slim against the table, scattering chips and glasses. The other men at the table jumped back, their hands reaching for their weapons. "Stay out of this," Cole warned, his eyes blazing. "This is between me and Slim." He turned back to Slim, his face inches from his own. "Tell me, Slim, tell me everything, or I swear I'll send you back to that hole in the ground." Fear flickered in Slim's eyes. He knew Cole was serious. He knew he was capable of anything. All right, Slim gasped, his voice trembling. "I'll tell you everything." He began to talk, spilling the beans, revealing the details of the conspiracy. The gold was just the beginning. There was a buyer, a wealthy businessman from the East who was willing to pay a fortune for something else entirely. A map hidden within the gold shipment that led to a legendary Apache treasure. Slim revealed that Jade and Caleb had already taken the gold along with the map to a rendezvous point in the Black Mesa. The buyer, a man named Silas Blackwood, was expected to arrive within the week. Cole knew the Black Mesa. It was a treacherous landscape of jagged cliffs, hidden canyons, and scorching desert, a place where men went to disappear. It was the perfect place for a rendezvous and the perfect place for a final showdown. He wasn't going to let Jade and Caleb hand over that map. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about stopping Blackwood from exploiting the Apache treasure, from desecrating their sacred land. He left Slim tied up in the saloon, a warning to anyone who crossed his path. As he rode out of Redemption Gulch, the setting sun cast long shadows across the desert, painting the landscape in hues of orange and blood red. The journey to Black Mesa was grueling. The desert was unforgiving, the sun relentless. Cole pushed himself to the limit, driven by his unwavering resolve. He slept little, ate sparingly, and kept a constant vigil, wary of ambushes. He passed through abandoned settlements, their skeletal remains a testament to the harshness of the West. He saw vultures circling overhead, their presence a constant reminder of death. He began to hallucinate, his mind playing tricks on him. He saw ghosts of his past, faces of men he had killed in the war, faces of friends he had lost. They whispered to him, urging him to give up, to join them in the silence of the grave. But Cole refused to listen. He clung to his anger, to his desire for revenge. It was the only thing that kept him going. As he approached the Black Mesa, he could feel the change in the air. The temperature dropped, the wind picked up, and the sky darkened. A storm was brewing. He knew he was close. He could sense it. He dismounted his horse, tethering it to a scrub brush. He drew his Colt, checked the cylinder one last time, and began to climb. The final confrontation was at hand. He was ready, or at least as ready as a man crawling back from death could be. He had a score to settle and a treasure to protect. The West was about to get a whole lot wilder. The storm broke as Cole reached the summit of Black Mesa. Lightning illuminated the jagged peaks, casting an eerie glow on the landscape. He could see a small campfire burning in the distance, nestled within a narrow canyon. That had to be them. He moved cautiously, using the rocks and shadows as cover. He could hear voices, muffled by the wind and rain. He crept closer, his heart pounding in his chest. He peered over the edge of the canyon. Jade and Caleb were sitting by the fire, their faces grim. They were arguing. "He's late," Caleb said, his voice laced with anxiety. "Blackwood should have been here by now." "He'll be here," Jade replied, his voice more confident. "He wouldn't miss out on this opportunity." "What if something happened?" Caleb persisted. "What if he got lost? What if the Apache found him?" "Shut up, Caleb," Jade snapped. "You're getting on my nerves." Cole saw his opportunity. He dropped down into the canyon, landing silently behind them. "Looking for someone?" he said, his voice a low growl. Jade and Caleb spun around, their eyes wide with shock. They scrambled to their feet, reaching for their weapons. "Cole," Jade exclaimed, his face contorted with rage. "How are you still alive?" "That's what you should be asking yourselves," Cole replied, drawing his Colt. "Where's the map?" "We don't know what you're talking about," Caleb said, his voice trembling. "Don't play dumb with me," Cole said, his eyes blazing. "I know about the map. I know about Blackwood. Where is it?" Jade and Caleb exchanged glances. They knew they were trapped. "It's here," Jade said, reaching into his coat. He pulled out a rolled-up piece of parchment, its edges frayed and yellowed. "Give it to me," Cole demanded. Jade hesitated for a moment, then tossed the map to Cole. Cole caught it, his eyes never leaving Jade and Caleb. "Now," Cole said, his voice cold and hard. "Tell me everything about Blackwood. What does he want with the treasure? And what are you two going to get out of this?" The rain continued to fall, washing the blood and grime from Cole's face. He stood there, a ghost risen from the grave, ready to exact his revenge. The storm raged around him, a fitting backdrop for the final act of this deadly drama. Jade and Caleb, cornered and desperate, revealed that Blackwood was obsessed with finding the Apache treasure, believing it held immense power and wealth. He had hired them, promising a share of the spoils in exchange for their help in stealing the gold and securing the map. They claimed they didn't know about the plan to bury Cole alive, insisting it was Slim's idea. Cole didn't believe them. He saw the greed in their eyes, the same greed that had led them to betray him. He knew they were lying. He made a decision then, a decision that would forever alter the course of his life. He wouldn't let them live. He wouldn't let any of them live. He raised his Colt, his hand steady, his face devoid of emotion. Jade and Caleb pleaded for their lives, begging for mercy, but Cole was deaf to their pleas. He squeezed the trigger. 2 shots rang out, echoing through the canyon. Jade and Caleb fell to the ground, their bodies lifeless. Cole stood over them, his chest heaving, his mind racing. He had crossed a line. He was no longer a scout, a lawman, or even a man. He was a killer. He took a deep breath, trying to regain control. He knew he couldn't dwell on what he had done. He had to focus on Blackwood. He had to stop him before he could claim the Apache treasure. He examined the map, tracing its intricate lines and symbols with his finger. It was old, fragile, and written in a language he didn't understand. But he knew enough about the Apache territory to follow its general direction. He mounted his horse and rode off into the night, leaving the bodies of Jade and Caleb behind. The storm had subsided, and the moon peeked out from behind the clouds, casting a pale light on the landscape. As he rode, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He could feel the eyes of the Apache upon him, their presence a constant reminder of the sacred land he was about to enter. He knew that Blackwood wouldn't be alone. He would have guards, trackers, and maybe even some Apache renegades who were willing to betray their own people for a share of the treasure. He had to be careful, he had to be smart, he had to be ruthless. He was a ghost, a shadow, a hunter, and he was coming for Blackwood. The treasure would be protected one way or another, and Cole would be the one to ensure it. It took him 2 days to track Blackwood's party. They were moving fast, pushing their horses to the limit. Blackwood had hired a group of seasoned mercenaries, men who knew how to survive in the desert and how to kill without remorse. Cole shadowed them from a distance, using his skills as a scout to stay hidden. He observed their movements, their routines, their weaknesses. He knew he couldn't take them head-on. He had to be strategic. He found them camped in a narrow canyon near a spring. It was a natural bottleneck, a perfect place for an ambush. He waited until nightfall when the moon was hidden behind the clouds. He crept into the canyon, moving like a shadow. He disabled the guards one by one using his knife. He was silent, efficient, deadly. He reached Blackwood's tent. He could hear him inside, talking to someone in a low voice. He recognized the voice. It was Marcus. Cole hesitated for a moment. He had thought Marcus was just a pawn in Slim's game, but now it seemed he was more deeply involved. He burst into the tent, his Colt drawn. Blackwood and Marcus spun around, their faces etched with surprise. "Cole," Blackwood exclaimed, his eyes widening in disbelief. "How did you find us?" "It doesn't matter," Cole replied, his voice cold and hard. "It's over, Blackwood. The treasure belongs to the Apache." "You don't understand," Blackwood said, his voice pleading. "The treasure is more than just gold and jewels. It's a source of immense power. It could change the world." "Power corrupts," Cole said, "and you're already corrupted enough." "Don't do this, Cole," Marcus said, stepping forward. "We can share the treasure. We can all be rich." "You chose the wrong side, Marcus," Cole said, his voice filled with sadness. "I trusted you." "I had no choice," Marcus said. "Blackwood threatened my family." Cole didn't know if he was telling the truth, but it didn't matter. He had come too far to turn back now. He raised his Colt, his hand steady. Blackwood lunged for a weapon, but Cole was too quick. He fired. The bullet struck Blackwood in the chest, sending him sprawling to the ground. He gasped for air, his eyes filled with terror. Marcus stood there, frozen in place, his face pale. He knew he was next. Cole lowered his Colt, his hand trembling. He couldn't do it. He couldn't kill Marcus. "Get out of here, Marcus," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Go back to your family. Try to make amends for what you've done." Marcus didn't hesitate. He turned and ran, disappearing into the darkness. Cole stood over Blackwood's body, his mind racing. He had stopped him from claiming the Apache treasure, but at what cost? He was now a wanted man, a killer. He had lost everything. He took the map from Blackwood's lifeless hand. He knew he had to return it to the Apache. He knew he had to try to make amends for what he had done. He left the canyon, leaving Blackwood's body behind. He was alone, lost, and haunted by the ghosts of his past, but he was determined to do what was right. He would find the Apache, return the map, and try to find some measure of redemption. The West demanded it, and so did the memory of the man he used to be. Finding the Apache wasn't easy. They were a nomadic people, constantly on the move, wary of outsiders. Cole followed the faint trails, the subtle signs that only a skilled scout could discern. He left offerings of peace, tobacco, and beads at sacred sites, hoping to signal his intentions. Finally, after days of searching, he found them. A small band of warriors led by a wizened old shaman, their faces painted for war. They surrounded him, their eyes filled with suspicion and hostility. Cole dismounted his horse, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. He spoke to them in broken Apache, telling them his story, explaining how he had come to possess the map. He showed them the map, offering it to the shaman. The shaman examined the map, his eyes narrowing. He spoke to his warriors in their native tongue, their voices low and guttural. After a long deliberation, the shaman turned back to Cole. He spoke to him in English, his voice surprisingly clear. "You have killed many men," the shaman said. "Your hands are stained with blood." "I know," Cole replied, his voice filled with remorse. "I have done things I am not proud of, but I am trying to make amends." "Why do you return this map?" the shaman asked. "Why do you not keep it for yourself?" "The treasure is not mine to claim," Cole said. "It belongs to you, and I have seen what greed can do to men. I don't want any part of it." The shaman nodded slowly. He seemed to be considering Cole's words. "The map speaks of a great treasure," the shaman said. "A treasure that has been lost for many years, a treasure that belongs to our ancestors." "Blackwood sought this treasure for his own gain," Cole said. "He believed it would give him power." "Power is a dangerous thing," the shaman said. "It can corrupt even the purest heart." The shaman then revealed a startling truth. The gold that Cole had been guarding was not just any gold. It had been stolen from the Apache generations ago, a sacred tribute plundered by ruthless prospectors. The map had been hidden within the gold shipment, a desperate attempt by the Apache to reclaim their heritage. Blackwood, it turned out, was not just after the legendary Apache treasure. He was also seeking to cover up the dark secret of the stolen gold, a secret that implicated powerful figures in the government and the mining industry. Cole was stunned by this revelation. He had been a pawn in a much larger game, a game that he didn't even understand. He had been betrayed not just by his crew, but by the very system he had sworn to protect. The shaman took the map from Cole's hand, his eyes filled with gratitude. He offered Cole a place among his people, a chance to find peace and redemption. Cole considered the offer. It was tempting. He could disappear into the wilderness, leave his past behind, and start a new life. But he knew he couldn't. He had a debt to pay. He had to expose the truth about the stolen gold, even if it meant risking his own life. He owed it to the Apache, and he owed it to himself. He had to find a way to bring justice to those powerful figures. Cole knew exposing the powerful figures behind the stolen gold wouldn't be easy. They had influence, resources, and a willingness to protect their secrets at any cost. He needed proof, something more than just his word against theirs. He remembered Abernathy, the transport's overseer, the man who had been shot during the ambush. Abernathy had been a meticulous record keeper. He might have had something that could help him. Cole traveled to Prescott, the town where the gold transport had originated. He sought out Abernathy's widow, a kind and gentle woman named Sarah. He told her everything about the stolen gold, the map, Blackwood, and the powerful figures involved. Sarah was shocked by Cole's story. She had always believed her husband was an honest man, but she knew he had been troubled in the weeks leading up to his death. She agreed to help Cole. She searched through Abernathy's papers, his ledgers, his personal correspondence. Finally, she found it. A hidden compartment in Abernathy's desk contained a detailed account of the gold's origins, implicating several prominent businessmen and politicians. Cole had his proof, but he knew that simply presenting the evidence to the authorities wouldn't be enough. The powerful figures would use their influence to bury the truth. He needed to expose them publicly, to bring them to justice in the court of public opinion. He decided to confront the mastermind behind the conspiracy, the man who had orchestrated the theft of the gold and Abernathy's murder. It was Judge Samuel Harding, a respected figure in the community, a man known for his fairness and integrity. Cole knew this would be a dangerous confrontation. Harding was a powerful man, surrounded by loyal supporters, but Cole had come too far to turn back now. He found Harding at his ranch, a sprawling estate outside of Prescott. He confronted him in his study, presenting him with Abernathy's account. Harding denied everything, claiming the account was a forgery. He accused Cole of being a madman, a murderer, a liar. Cole knew he wouldn't be able to reason with Harding. He had to force him to confess. A tense standoff ensued, a battle of wills between two men, each determined to protect their own interests. Harding, despite his age, was not defenseless. He revealed a hidden pistol, his eyes hardening. "You should have stayed buried, Jennings," Harding said, his voice cold and menacing. "You've stirred up something you can't possibly understand." Cole knew this was it, the final showdown. He drew his Colt, his hands steady. The air crackled with tension, the silence broken only by the ticking of a clock on the wall. The stage was set for a deadly reckoning, a final act of justice, or perhaps just another tragic fall in the unforgiving West. The ticking clock seemed to amplify the tension, each second stretching into an eternity. Harding made the first move, firing his pistol. Cole reacted instinctively, diving for cover behind a large oak desk. The bullet whizzed past his head, embedding itself in the wall. Cole returned fire, his Colt spitting lead. Harding ducked behind a bookshelf, sending volumes tumbling to the floor. The study became a chaotic battlefield, filled with the smell of gunpowder and the sounds of shattering glass. The gunfight was brief but intense. Cole, hardened by years of experience, was a superior marksman. He managed to wound Harding, a bullet grazing his arm. Harding, weakened but not defeated, staggered out of the study, heading for the main house. Cole pursued him, determined to finish what he had started. They emerged onto the veranda where a group of Harding's supporters were gathered, alerted by the sound of gunfire. They raised their weapons, ready to defend their leader. Cole found himself outnumbered, outgunned. He knew he couldn't win a straight fight. He had to be clever. He grabbed Harding, using him as a shield. The supporters hesitated, unwilling to risk harming their beloved judge. "Let me go, Jennings," Harding screamed, struggling to break free. "They'll kill you." "Not if you tell them the truth," Cole replied, his voice low and menacing. "Tell them about the stolen gold. Tell them about Abernathy's murder. Tell them everything." Harding refused. He was too proud, too stubborn, too afraid of the consequences. Cole knew he had no choice. He tightened his grip on Harding, his hand closing around his throat. "Tell them, Harding," Cole hissed, "or I'll choke the life out of you right here, right now." Harding's face turned red, his eyes bulging. He gasped for air, his body convulsing. Finally, he relented. He began to speak, his voice raspy and weak, confessing to everything. He admitted to stealing the gold, orchestrating Abernathy's murder, and conspiring with Blackwood to cover up the truth. The supporters were stunned by Harding's confession. They lowered their weapons, their faces filled with disbelief. Cole released Harding, letting him fall to the ground. He turned to the supporters, his eyes blazing. "He's a liar, a thief, and a murderer," Cole said. "He doesn't deserve your respect. He deserves to be brought to justice." The supporters hesitated for a moment, then turned on Harding, their anger and disappointment overwhelming their loyalty. Cole watched as they dragged Harding away, their voices filled with outrage. He knew that Harding would face the consequences of his actions. He would be brought to trial, convicted, and imprisoned, but Cole knew that his own future was uncertain. He was a wanted man, a killer. He had achieved his revenge, but at a great cost. As the sun set over the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, Cole rode away from Harding's ranch, a solitary figure silhouetted against the fiery sky. He was alone, lost, and haunted by the ghosts of his past, but he had done what he believed was right. He had brought justice to those who had wronged him, and he had exposed the truth about the stolen gold. He didn't know what the future held for him. He might be captured, imprisoned, or even killed. But he knew that he could face his fate with a clear conscience. He had crawled out of the grave, and he had made them pay. Years later, the story of Cole Jennings became a legend in the West, a tale of survival, revenge, and redemption. Some called him a hero, others called him a villain. But all agreed that he was a force to be reckoned with, a man who had defied death and brought justice to a lawless land. But the Apache treasure was never found, and the true extent of the government's involvement was never fully revealed, leaving a lingering question: was the price of revenge truly worth the cost?